I love the Beast of Nurgle model, but I wanted to make something unique to go with my Bebop Nurgle. So, here we are, on the level 9 laboratory. I used 3 slug-sized pieces of tinfoil to fill out the middle. That way I'm not using too much clay. Then, using a pasta roller, I flatten out a bunch of polymer clay and start the first layer. I do this on all 3. And begin the primary shaping of these slug dudes. To make all these guys unique but still look like a team, I wanted to stick really closely with that slug-like look, and I wanted this one to have a bit of a shell sort of on the back, making it look like it's either like a heavy kind of leather sort of material, something that would let you know that it's armored on the back. And of course, like all of Nurgle's followers, having some type of hole in your guts where a mouth is going to be just seems to be a standard. By using the sharp end of the tool, I just kind of drag it across the clay, leaving little indents that'll kind of make it look like a wrinkle. And I wanted to add some gums inside the mouth. So I used these little rolled up bits and the sockets for the teeth. This particular guy, I'm going to call him Kevin, is pulling on his stomach to kind of widen his mouth to show off this nasty grill of teeth. Most of the time when I model going off of these pictures, the picture is just a very rough outline of what I'm actually going to do. The inspiration really comes when I actually put the clay on the model and maybe make a mistake or two, and then I realize, oh, I can just, I can fix it, I can change it, I can move it any way I want. I also wanted Kevin here to have some ridges on his back. And then I used one of my tools that had a grip on it to give it a bit of texture. Looks like Kevin needs some chapstick. After adding some scars and some slashes into his back, I put on these little spore-like cysts. And with Kevin in the oven baking, I will move on to the next guy. Let's call him Chris. I wanted to get the underside of the slug to look like it was rippling, kind of fat. This particular model has a more pronounced flange on the sides going all the way to the end of the tail, and I wanted to add these little like almost look like spore pockets on his back, similar to what I've seen on poison frogs and on mushrooms. To show off how slimy Chris is, I've rolled some clay into a long snake, and he's going to have more tentacles than everybody else, just to kind of give him this weird kind of sluggish, squid-like look. And of course, they have to have some type of open wound. I kind of ran across this by accident when I dropped some clay into my my little tool bin, and it ran across some of my armature wire, and it actually left a pretty decent detail. So I've used that to accent the other arms on this particular model. I can take one glance at this one and I know for sure it's a Dan. It just looks like a Dan. I've met these Dans before. This one I wanted to have a big open mouth, kind of look like he's always got it open, just kind of waiting for a fly to roll in there. I also wanted this one to look like it had more rolls, as there's a lot more flesh on this one. The other ones sort of have more of a muscular build, at least the Kevin model does. Right now this one kind of just looks like a tadpole. But once the wrinkles go on and you add a couple features, you can kind of see him start to take shape. I wanted it to have 3 eyes. There's many things in Nurgle that are 3 spherical shapes, kind of close together. It just seems to be like a symbol of Nurgle, a sign of his pox. Lots of time spent just scarring up the skin and giving him more wrinkles. So after rolling out quite a few clay snakes, I had this idea of giving him sort of a plume on the top of his head. So by just packing them all together and kind of poking holes in the top to make them look like they're potentially vents, it gives it the look I was going for. Now, because I wanted the Chris model and the Dan model to look very different, I started off with clay rolls in a snake shape, and then I turned the end of it into a kind of claw. To show off that Dan is the most terrifying in combat, I wanted to add a big claw on the front of each of his arms and some subsequent claws kind of just coming out of the side. And of course, it needs a mouth in its stomach. So Dan spent some time in the oven after giving him a tongue, kind of adding to his expression. So he's nice and all baked now. Time to finish up this sort of carapace and continue on the spores on the back of this Chris model. experimented with quite a few different styles of head. I didn't really know what to go with here, but I kind of just let the model be my inspiration. And then I was kind of reminded that they are slugs, so they have this weird kind of mouth that's just an open hole. I also wanted to give this model slug and snail-like eyes. One thing I probably should be doing is baking it in the oven more often. I always find when I'm working on one side, I'm kind of smashing the other with my other hand. And now it's Chris's time to bake in the oven. It took me quite some time to figure out the positioning of the right arm on this particular model. Its position will change quite a bit over the course of the video. I really liked the idea of this smiling, grimacing face with one eye. But I did have problems positioning the head on top of the shoulders. And securing it after I had made it was quite difficult, as it was just so soft after being heated up in my hand. To build out the structure on the neck, I had to add quite a few rolls. And I like the way he still kept that 3 motto that Nurgle usually has, with his horns coming out of his head. And to show off that nothing is really right with this guy, I added a bunch of tentacles coming out of the back. I then proceeded to do a bit of dentistry work on Kevin here. So, with Chris, Kevin, and Dan all done, it's time for paint. I start off my paint here just with a black primer on all three of them. And then using my airbrush, I prime them in a flesh tone and a bit of a green, before adding the color that's going to unify the three of them, which is this kind of bright purple. And we're on to some of the finer details. The teeth and claws all get a form of white, whether it be a little bit brown or a little bit yellow. I always find that once the eyes go in, it just gives them so much more character. I also wanted those pustules on the back to be a brighter color, the same color over all three of them for each one of their little pus balls. I've used a very bright pink kind of purpley color and actually mixed it with the original purple that I airbrushed on to give it a nice solid blend as it fades into the more darker spots of the model. And to show off how poisonous Dan is, I give him a bright green dry brush. And on the tips of his claws, I continue to dab it with this neon forest green until it really, really shines. All of the little spores on the back of this Chris model here get brightly colored with a nice reddish dry brush, the same color I used on the spores on the other models. A little bit of edge highlighting can really draw out the dimensions that you add to these kinds of models. Now the blue gums turned out better than I expected. After a couple washes, it kind of dumbed them down and made them look very necrotic. Really only one thing left, and that's to finish the bases, and then it's on to our finished product. Thank you all so much for sticking around to the end of the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And I'll see you next time when we cook up something new in the Level 9 laboratory.